All IPMAT aspirants out there, welcome to part 5 of how to crack IPMAT exams in 30 days. This part will focus on how many questions should you need to solve on each topic to gain command and complete the same within 30 days to crack your various IPMAT exams. Let's dive in. We have allotted 110 hours to the practice in these 30 days. These 110 hours will be allocated across quantitative aptitude for 45 hours, 30 hours for practicing logical reasoning and data interpretation, and close to 35 hours for practicing verbal ability. Moving on, uh, we have to prioritize easy and moderate level difficulty questions and then move to higher level difficulty. So whatever study material you are referring to, try to solve all the easy and moderate level questions up front. Next, we have the JIPMAT or IPMAT Rohtak, which focuses on moderate level difficulty, and only IPMAT Indore really gives you a difficult set of questions. So maybe covering moderate questions makes you well versed with 2 out of the 3 IPMATs. Let's talk about practicing quantitative aptitude. As we already know, the syllabus of quantitative aptitude consists of multiple topics. All of them have been color coded into their importance in from an IPMAT exam perspective. So we see the green ones are basically those topics which are very important from preparation perspective. The yellow ones are sort of moderately important, like factors, interest, mixtures, set theory, trigonometry, determinants. And also we have the red ones which are like rarely tested in IPMAT examinations, and hence we should deprioritize them or keep them towards the last once we have entire coverage of the quant syllabus. So how to practice? So for 45 hours of practice that we have kept for quant, we should try to allocate them to the different headers. So as you see, arithmetic, numbers, modern maths and all, we have categorized all the topics. We have measured the relative difficulty of each of these topics when it comes to practicing. And then we also have the relative importance of these sections based on their individual importance across the three kinds of IPMAT exams. Overall, once you look at this, you realize that your focus should be 25% on arithmetic, 10% on numbers, 10% on 20% on modern maths, 25% on geometry, and lastly 20% on algebra. Overall, this strategy should give you enough leeway into what's important for you. And when we talk about how much to practice, well, as you can see the colored row here, it says the number of questions across each topic that you need to practice. So we have 220 questions that you need to solve from arithmetic sections, close to 90 questions from the numbers, close to 130 questions from the modern maths, 200 plus questions in geometry, and 180 questions from algebra. Higher maths, as I said, you can maybe practice matrices and determinants for some bit, but I would definitely ask you to or suggest you to sort of deprioritize, as especially if you are a non-maths student. How to practice logical reasoning and data interpretation? Well, to practice logical reasoning and data interpretation, we again look at all the topics, and as you can see, I've color coded them on the basis of their importance. Take a moment to absorb the table that you have in front of you. But as I can see, especially the red ones, you can deprioritize them because they are relatively less important and less frequently tested. Consider this, IPMAT Indore doesn't really have a logical reasoning section, so there are only 5 questions that comes from the set based puzzles, or which consist of either distribution, arrangement, selection, comparison sort of topics. For the IPMAT Indore and the IPMAT Rohtak and the JIPMAT exams, well, you can see a decent breadth of coverage across all the 5 headers that I have. All right, so how do I invest those 30 hours that I've kept for practicing logical reasoning and data interpretation? Well, to begin with, we have the relative difficulty of each of these topics in front of you, followed by relative importance. This relative importance of these questions have been built from individual analysis of papers for IPMAT Indore, Rohtak, and JIPMAT. Uh, Based on this, what I can say is 40% of your focus should be on practicing questions from single question types, 30% for set based. This is largely because of the IPMAT Indore thing, And then we have critical reasoning and non-verbal reasoning to solve close to 15 and 5% of your focus time. And lastly, we have 10% of the focus time to be spent on data interpretation, considering some of them can come in a sets of 3 to 5 questions and can immediately give you a boost in your score. When it comes to number of questions, so what I suggest is you solve 200 individual questions across clocks, calendars, blood relations, direction sense and all, and we solve 30 sets of puzzle based questions across distribution, selection, arrangements, etc., each set consisting of 3 to 4 questions. So that gives you 120 sort of questions. For critical reasoning and non-verbal reasoning and data interpretation, I suggest close to 50 to 70 questions of practice within these 30 days should be enough. Consider this practice questions are just for self-practicing purposes. It is not included in the number of questions that you attempt while solving mocks. So anything else that you do while giving a mock is over and above what I am recommending here when we say the number of questions. So total hours, again, like I said, this is the split of 30 hours that we have on top. So the hours are allotted basis how much time it would typically take for you to solve such questions. Okay. Next, we have the verbal ability. So how to practice verbal ability? So again, like I said, that the first thing to know is what kind of questions do I get? So looking at this, again, I have categorized all the types of questions into their relative importance. The red ones being the least likely, the yellow ones being equally likely, and the green ones means something that you should never ever try to deprioritize. These are very, very important questions. Given all of the 4 headers are equally important when it comes to how much of each content is going to come in your IPMAT exams, I suggest being very, very focused on covering the breadth of topics rather than going too much into one particular area. But if I were to put, like you said, grammar, almost everything is being tested. So maybe you might want to give some more time here. But let's go ahead and figure out how to allocate our 40 hours when it comes to VA. So for VA, what I suggest is you start with uh, the VA RC part of the verbal ability section and try to adopt certain strategies. Like I said, you can try starting with solving one RC in 10 to 12 minutes. So it might take you more time initially, but as you practice, consider this to be your ideal timeline. Given that RC is very contextual to the passage that is given, try to obtain a good accuracy. The more good you are in RCs, the better are your chances, because the information they are seeking for is right there in front of you in the passage. Okay, before your actual exam, should definitely plan to solve close to 100 RCs, which might not always be true, but that's a number that you should keep in mind. And always practice selection prior to solving RCs, and practice different kinds of RCs. So what do I mean by practice selection? So it's a simple hack. It's basically when you want to solve an RC, always read 2 RCs and pick one, so that what happens is you are always practicing, okay, what kind of questions I'm good at, what kind of RCs do I normally end up getting correct. So that's something that you should, if you practice, you'll be able to quickly find the right RCs to solve in the exam. All right, continuing, let's look at the non-RC or the verbal ability section, which do not consist of RC. So here you see a big sunburst sort of a graph. What actually it represents here is it's grammar, verbal reasoning, as well as vocabulary, and the outer circle sort of talks about how much of each kind of questions that you can see. So the orange ones are all the vocab based questions, the blue one are all the grammar based questions, and the green one are all the verbal reasoning based questions. The numbers on the fine sides basically talks about how much hours do you need to practice each of them. Like for example, for verbal reasoning para jumbles, you need to invest 1.5 hours. Similarly for vocab you can say odd one out needs to be practiced for close to 1 hour, and so on. All right, so this is something that you can keep in mind. This again, the 35 hours that we have for verbal ability have been split into 20 hours for RC and 15 hours for non-RC. I've not gone the number of questions route because it entirely depends on what's your strong area here. So my suggestion is to stick to the overall timeline and solve as many questions as you can. All right. But if I were to take a step back and give you an estimate of what a good amount of time per question should be, so for RC it's like 10 to 12 minutes per RC, irrespective of whether it's 5 questions or 6 questions or 4 questions. And then for verbal ability, it's like max 2 minutes or 1.5 minute per question eventually. So try to solve as much as possible for you to be good in when it comes to speed. Yes, so this is it. I wanted to wish you all the very best for your IPMAT exams and hope this whole 30-day strategy sort of works out for you. Thank you.